Everyone, ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling a pretty hot topic, literally California wildfires.
Yeah, a lot of folks are talking about it.
We've got a whole stack of sources here, academic articles, historical accounts, even some opinion pieces that really get to the heart of things.
Nice.
So the goal today is to dig in, go beyond the headlines,
Right.
see just how complex this whole issue really is.
Yeah, it's easy to just point at climate change, right?
Yeah.
But the sources we've got, they show it's way more complicated than that.
Yeah, I was reading this article by Stephen Pine, the fire historian,
Oh, yeah?
in the LA Times, and he
Yeah.
said something that really stuck with me. He called California intrinsically fire-prone.
Wow.
And it made me realize, like, these intense fires, they're not new.
Well-
They're like baked into California's DNA going back centuries.
Yeah, centuries. I mean, think about this. Explorers back in the 1500s,
Ah.
they even wrote about California's smoky skies back then.
Wow.
So it's not just climate, right?
Right.
The fire proneness, it's also about how we've dealt with fire over time.
So it's not just putting out the flames, there's a bigger picture here.
Absolutely. For decades, we've been putting out every little fire.
Yeah.
And it's kind of backfired.
How so?
Well, it lets all this vegetation build up. Creates a ton of fuel for these huge, intense fires when they do start.
So we almost messed with a natural cycle
Okay.
by trying to control it.
Yeah. And then on top of that, you've got urban sprawl
Right. Cities growing.
pushing further into fire-prone areas.
But isn't it about more than just where we build?
Oh, absolutely. It's how we build, too.
One of our sources actually questioned this whole idea of the wildland-urban interface.
Oh, yeah. Jack Cohen,
Yeah.
fire research scientist. He thinks the term's outdated.
Really?
He says development's blurred the lines so much
Yeah. I
that
don't know.
focusing on just location kind of misses the point.
Interesting, because we always hear about protecting that zone, right?
Right,
Where the
that's-
wilderness meets the city.
Yeah, he's saying it's bigger than that.
So it's not just...
It's the physics of fire.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't change based on location.
It's
With wind-driven embers.
not just those walls of flame.
Right, they're the real danger. Those embers can travel for miles
Wow.
ahead of the fire front.
So even if you're miles from a wildfire,
Mm-hmm.
your home could still be at risk
Absolutely.
from those embers.
He uses this powerful example.
Okay.
The destruction in Pacific Palisades and Altadena,
Mm-hmm.
homes totally destroyed. But the trees next to them were fine.
Oh, wow.
Those embers did the damage.
So it's not just being near a fire.
Right,
It's being prepared for those embers.
exactly. And that makes you wonder, are we focusing too much on fighting fires after they start
Yeah.
instead of preventing homes from igniting in the first place?
It's a good question.
It is.
So if wildfires are natural in California,
Yeah.
how do we even start changing our approach?
Well, you might be surprised to hear this, but we've actually been here before.
What do you mean?
Many of these fires are popping up in the same spots as fires from decades ago.
So history's repeating itself.
Exactly. 1919 and 2009 fires in the San Gabriel Mountains.
Wow.
The 1956 Anaja fire and the 2003 Cedar fire.
Okay.
Echoes of past blazes.
It's like we're forgetting the lessons.
Mm-hmm.
But even if these fires are cyclical,
Yeah,
it feels like the damage is on a whole other level now.
right.
What's driving that?
Well, a few things. We talked about fire suppression, right?
Yeah.
How it leads to all that fuel buildup.
Mm-hmm.
But another big one, climate change.
Right.
We can't ignore its role in making these fires worse.
We can't just blame natural cycles, right?
Right.
Human actions have consequences.
They do, and there are other human actions that are playing a part too.
Like what?
We need to talk about the fossil fuel industry.
That's definitely a hot button issue.
It is.
Curious to see what our sources say.
Yeah, there was this opinion piece that really caught my eye.
Okay.
Why SoCal burns and who's to blame. It really digs into the industry's role in all of this.
And who wrote that?
This one's by Qasim Rashid.
Okay.
Really makes you think. He argues that the fossil fuel industry,
Mm-hmm.
they bear a big responsibility for the wildfire crisis.
Okay.
He points to this report from the Harvard Gazette.
Okay.
Turns out, ExxonMobil knew about how their products were affecting climate change back in the 1970s,
Wow.
but they actively downplayed it, denied the science.
So they knew about these consequences decades ago. Mm-hmm. But how does all this connect to the wildfires we're seeing now?
It's a chain reaction, really. Fossil fuels contribute to climate change.
Mm-hmm.
That leads to more extreme weather like droughts and heat waves.
Right.
And those conditions,
Yeah.
they're perfect for wildfires to start and spread quickly.
So it's like a web of interconnected issues.
Exactly. Climate change, fire suppression, urban sprawl, fossil fuel industry, all tangled up.
It's a lot to take in, but before we get into solutions,
Yeah.
there's another layer we need to talk about. These systemic issues that often get overlooked.
Right. It's easy to focus on the immediate dangers
But there are underlying systems.
contributing to the problem.
One that really stood out to me
Yeah.
was the use of prison labor for firefighting.
It raises a lot of ethical concerns.
Yeah.
These individuals are paid incredibly low wages,
Wow.
often just a few dollars a day,
Seriously.
and then they're denied opportunities to become firefighters after they're released
Because of
their felony convictions.
it's a system that seems to take advantage of those who are already struggling.
Exactly, and it highlights these deep inequalities that are part of this whole crisis.
And we can't forget about water either.
Right,
Privatization of California's water supply.
another big systemic issue.
It's making things worse.
Absolutely concentrating control of this crucial resource in the hands of just a few.
Yeah.
Leaves communities with very little access, especially during droughts.
And that makes the landscape even more vulnerable to wildfires.
Yep.
It's a reminder that the wildfire crisis isn't just about the environment.
Right.
It's a social justice issue, too.
It is.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground, painted a pretty bleak picture.
Mm.
Is there any hope here?
Oh, there's definitely hope.
Okay, good.
And there are solutions out there.
Okay.
That's what we'll get into in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, I'm ready for some good news.
All right, let's do it. It's a lot to think about, right? All these factors.
Yeah.
But they're glimmers of hope, you know.
Okay, I'm ready for some good news.
Our sources, they offer some potential solutions.
Okay.
Some of them are actually pretty practical.
Okay, give me some hope here.
Well, one of the most promising ideas is shifting our focus
Okay.
from wildfire control to home ignition prevention.
So instead of putting out every wildfire that pops up,
Yeah.
we focus on making sure homes don't catch fire in the first place.
Exactly. We can't always control those extreme conditions,
Right?
but we can make our homes and communities less vulnerable.
Okay. I like that idea, taking action where we can.
Right. But what does that look like in practice, preventing home ignition?
Well, one thing is building with fire-resistant materials.
Okay.
Metal roofs, non-combustible siding, double-pane windows.
Makes sense. Less flammable stuff.
Right. Reduce the risk of those embers getting in.
Yeah. But what about homes that are already built?
Yeah, good question. You can retrofit your property,
How?
creating defensible space around your house,
What's that?
clearing vegetation and anything flammable
Okay.
within a certain distance from your home.
So like a buffer zone.
Exactly. Protect it from embers.
So no piles of firewood next to the house?
Nope. Simple things can make a big difference.
And it's not just individual homeowners, right?
Right. Community efforts are crucial, too.
Like those prescribed burns I've heard about.
Exactly.
Intentionally setting fires to clear out the brush.
Yeah. Controlled burns are a valuable tool.
So basically giving the landscape a haircut.
Yeah. And it's not a new idea either.
Oh, right. Indigenous communities have been doing this for centuries. Exactly. Managing their lands, preventing those huge fires.
It's like we're rediscovering these ancient practices.
It's about respecting and learning from that traditional knowledge.
So we've talked about proactive steps for prevention,
Hmm.
but what about those systemic issues? Prison labor, water privatization.
Yeah, there's a growing movement pushing for change there, too.
Okay, good.
When it comes to prison labor, people are fighting for fair wages, for incarcerated firefighters, and pathways to actual careers after they're released.
Instead of being trapped in that system,
Right, and investing in professional firefighting forces.
it's about addressing those ethical concerns.
Exactly. We can't rely on a system that exploits people.
And what about water privatization?
There's a push for more public control of water,
Okay.
making sure everyone has access, especially during droughts.
Yeah, that makes sense. Keeping the landscape healthy.
Right, less susceptible to fire.
So individual actions are important,
Yeah.
but it sounds like we need bigger changes too.
Absolutely. Systemic change.
What does that look like?
Policies that hold the fossil fuel industry accountable.
Okay.
Promote renewable energy. Incentivize sustainable practices. Protect our resources.
So it's a whole system overhaul.
Yeah, thinking bigger, bolder, more
So
collectively.
addressing those root causes.
Exactly, not just putting Band-Aids on the symptoms.
It can feel overwhelming, but you're right. We need to work together.
You don't have to do everything. Find your niche, focus your energy.
Yeah, make a difference where you can.
Exactly. Advocate for change, support organizations, make sustainable choices.
Yeah, every action counts.
It does.
You know, hearing all this actually makes me feel hopeful.
That's great.
Like there are things we can do.
That's the feeling we want to leave you with.
Okay, but where do we even begin?
Start with your own space.
Okay,
Create that defensible zone around your home.
like we talked about.
Clear out the vegetation, 30 feet at least.
A tangible step. Anyone can do that.
Exactly. And there are resources out there to help.
Through local fire departments, online.
Yeah, lots of information available.
Okay, so we've got a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
But what about folks who want to do more?
Yeah.
Like advocate for policy change.
There are so many organizations doing amazing work. Wildfire prevention, climate change, forest restoration, social justice.
Yeah.
Do some research, find one that speaks to you, get involved.
Donate, volunteer, spread the word.
Exactly.
And just talking about these issues with friends and family.
Yeah, raising awareness, sparking conversations.
It all makes a difference.
It does. The more we talk about it, the more we normalize it.
Creates that sense of collective responsibility.
Exactly. We're all in this together.
Protecting our planet and each other.
Well said. And on that note,
Yeah.
let's move on to the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We've explored the causes, the challenges, the solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's tackle a question that's been on my mind.
Okay.
Can we really coexist with fire in California?
We've covered a lot of ground,
great.
the history, the challenges, the possible solutions. But the question that keeps coming back to me is, can we really coexist with fire in California?
It's the big question, right?
Yeah, are we stuck in this cycle of destruction forever?
I think a lot of people are wondering that. But it's interesting.
Yeah.
Our sources point to a real shift in perspective.
Like what?
We're moving away from this idea of conquering fire
Oh.
toward a more, I guess you could say, balanced view.
So instead of always fighting it,
Mm-hmm.
we're learning to live with it.
Exactly. Recognizing that fire, it's a natural force.
Right.
Part of a lot of ecosystems.
Yeah.
Trying to just get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Not only is it possible, it can make things worse.
Right, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Suppressing all those small fires.
Leads to more fuel.
Right. Huge wildfires.
It's like trying to hold back a flood.
You can do it for a while.
But eventually...
Future wins.
Exactly.
So if we accept that fire is here to stay, what does coexisting actually look like?
Well, it's not just one thing.
Okay.
It's a whole approach, bringing together different ideas.
Okay.
Combining traditional knowledge with science,
Mm-hmm.
proactive prevention with smart responses, individual action with systemic change.
Okay, so a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
What are some examples? Like, how would this actually work?
Well, on the prevention side, it means using things like those prescribed burns,
Oh, right.
forest thinning, reducing fuel loads, creating landscapes that can handle fire.
So helping the landscape adapt.
Yeah. And it also means changing how we build.
Okay.
Fire-resistant materials, designing homes with defensible space in mind.
To minimize risk.
Exactly.
And when fires do happen...
Of course, we still need firefighters.
Yeah.
But it's about more than just putting out the flames, being
Right.
ready to evacuate,
Right.
having good communication systems, being flexible.
And that's where community resilience comes in.
Absolutely, communities working together,
Yeah.
preparing, responding, supporting each other, sharing resources.
So creating a culture of fire adaptation.
Exactly, not just reacting when a fire starts.
It's a long-term process.
It is a shift in how we think. Learning from the past, working together to build a safer future.
It's a hopeful message, not surrendering to fire,
Right.
but learning to live with it.
And more communities are getting on board with this idea.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, it's not just about surviving wildfires. It's about thriving in a landscape where fire is part of the ecosystem.
It's a whole different way of looking at it.
It is.
So to everyone listening,
Yeah.
keep exploring this topic. Have conversations about fire adaptation in your communities. Take those small steps.
They make a difference.
Even a single spark can ignite a movement.
It can.
And together we can create a more fire-resilient future for California and beyond.
I love that. And remember, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
The more we understand about wildfires, the better decisions we can make.
So as we wrap up our deep dive,
Yeah.
we'll leave you with this final thought.
Okay.
If wildfires are a part of California's story,
Mm-hmm.
what role will you play in writing the next chapter?
Until next time, keep diving deep and stay